Thanks, Jacob. So a quick introduction of myself. My name is Justin Larrabee. I'm one of the sales managers for Victron in North America. And with sales, it's also technical for me. So what I'm going to do today here is talk about some of the cabling that we have and also the product interaction, whether it's wired or wireless over Bluetooth. And that should fill up a good part of the hour. As Jacob mentioned, it is just me today, so I'll do my best to look at the Q&A, but we'll save some time at the end, I hope, for any of your questions. But I'm also in the open network session following this. So if you have any questions that we don't get to, I'm happy to answer them in there. I'm going to jump right in here. First of all, I want to talk about some of the various cabling that we use in our systems. On the top row here, you'll see labeling VE.Bus. And the VE.Bus products will have that written on them, also on the data sheets. So anytime you see VE.Bus, you should be thinking about a straight through RJ45 Cat5 cable. And I know many of you make these on your own. Just be careful when you're making them to make sure that they're straight through RJ45 UTP cables. So you'll see those cables on our multi-plus units, our Quattro units, the large VE.Bus inverters, and one exception there, I put a star next to it, is our Phoenix charger. That's an older model. The software that you'll use to configure those with that connection in between would be our VictronConnect software. And what we're really doing here, you'll see VictronConnect as you move down the line, is trying to put all of the configuration into one program. There was a time where we had multiple programs for multiple products, and now we're trying to get that into one place. So it's easier for you to use and easy for us to make usable. Moving down the line here, we have the VE.Direct cable. That one you do have to buy from us. You'll also see that on the products themselves, VE.Direct, and the data sheets when you're looking at them. And this is the connector and cable that you should be thinking about when you see a VE.Direct product. Some examples of that are our MPPTs, our BMV battery monitors, our smart shunts, the small VE.Direct inverters. There's also a Phoenix charger, a Skilla IP43. The Blue Power charger I put on here, but that's only via Bluetooth. So what I'm trying to do here is get you some pictures in mind when you're thinking about communication cables and looking at the products. The next line down, that's VE.Can. You'll see that on some of our products, also on the data sheets and our control panels, which I'm going to talk about coming up here. That's also a straight through RJ45 UTP cable. So again, you can make those, you can purchase them from us or a third party. Just make sure that you're purchasing the right variety. Super important. I put this last line in here. I was questioning whether it needed to be here at all, but we did at one point or another, if you've been around Victron products for any length of time, have a VE.Net communication protocol. That has now gone away on any of the current units that we're selling. So still hear some confusion around the VE.Net and the VE.Can. VE.Net has completely disappeared now. You won't be encountering that on any new systems. So with these communication cables, there are some central connection places. So we call these our GX devices. Some of them are listed here with photographs. There is the Cerbo GX on the left-hand side. Second one in from the left, you have our color control, followed by the Venus GX and the Octo GX. The only one with an onboard screen here is the color control, second from left. The others have options for auxiliary screens, but some customers say, well, I just want the functionality of it in the remote monitoring, so the screen isn't super important to me, and that saves on the cost, of course. I have a small overview here, which can be seen on our website as well, and you'll see the first line here, the display. Well, the color control is the only one that has one on board. But our latest device in the GX lineup, the Cerbo GX, has an auxiliary screen. It's called the GX Touch 50, which is a 5-inch screen, or the GX Touch 70, which is a 7-inch screen. You can look at all of these specifications again on our website, but the latest and greatest is the Cerbo GX. It has the most CPU power in it. It has the most connectivity options, and also adding multiple VE.Direct devices was a big request from customers. So we've added that to the device. Some of the features you're going to expect out of these GX devices is a central hub. Well, first of all, it can be a system display. You can connect these to the internet for monitoring with our VRM portal over the local area network or Wi-Fi. If you don't have access to the internet, you can data log to an SD card or USB stick and load that up to the VRM portal at a later date. So I'm thinking about mobile installations that go in and out of Wi-Fi, perhaps an RB. We have a remote console option. What that is the ability to pull up a digital version of the panel on your computer, so you can access the installation as if you were sitting in front of it. There's GPS dongle options. Remote VE configure is a big one. So that's the ability to remotely program your inverter charger. Perhaps you're changing types of batteries, you're increasing the battery bank size, you want to turn up the charge current, you can do that as well. There's some remote firmware update ability, state of charge, maximum charge current, voltage sensing abilities. So that's what you're getting with that central communication hub. So this one might be a little bit overwhelming, but this is the connection options for the Cerbo GX. And I guess the takeaway here in brief is it connects to everything we sell that has a communication port on board. So that's the VE.Direct devices we talked about. That's the VE.Can devices we talked about, the VE.Bus devices we talked about, and even some third-party equipment. You know, you can connect PV inverters here, current sensors. You can start and stop a generator. This graphic is available on our website if you'd like to zoom into it. But it's well, just showing you the mass amount of connection options that you really have here for a central communication and display hub is what the idea here is. This is the color control. So that came before the Cerbo GX. This is still being sold in volume, so customers are still quite fond of it. And this is the back of the color control on the left-hand side. I've put a few examples in here in terms of connection options. So you can see over on the left-hand side, there's VE.Bus. So that's a multi-plus, a quattro, a large VE.Bus inverter. There's an option to attach a simple control panel with a toggle switch and a remote knob on it. Some customers say, well, you know, this screen is great, but I still want the simplicity of just being able to grab a hold of a toggle switch. So you can do that as well. There's some VE.Direct ports on here. You saw those cables in the beginning to connect your NPPTs or your BMB battery monitors or your smart shunts. There is a relay here. You can use that to start and stop a generator, for example. You have some VE.Can ports on the top. On the right-hand side, there's an Ethernet connection and also some USB host ports for things like GPS, Wi-Fi antenna, so you can reach into a Wi-Fi producing source and have connectivity to the VRM portal. And over on the right-hand side, it's a simplified drawing, just showing you the VE.Bus on the top, the VE.Direct on the bottom, and the VE.Can on the right. One thing to note here is the terminators are necessary for VE.Can. That's our version of CAN bus, so you need a terminator on both ends of that communication string to close the loop. Yes, connecting the GX devices to the internet. And here I have the color control, but all of the GXs work the same way. You can do that via LAN with either the Ethernet cable, which is the top left picture, or you can add a Wi-Fi dongle. We make a short range in the top right, or we make a long range to reach into the Wi-Fi router. On the bottom from left to right, we have a GSM GX. So that's using the GSM cellular network. In the middle, you can hardwire yourself to a mobile router, or you can use your phone as a mobile hotspot. Maybe I see a Q&A here. Maybe I can answer that. Data logging, customizable and exportable. Yes, you can export that to an Excel sheet and manipulate it beyond that. But from us, you can download it and put it in Excel. The rest is something that you would need to manipulate by yourself. Thank you for the question. Okay, moving on here. Okay, so you have this GX device. You have it on the internet, but I want to connect to it. Well, first of all, remote console, I mentioned that earlier, but you can pull that up on your phone, or you can pull that up on your desktop at home And these are some of the connection options that I've outlined here in the bottom left-hand corner. So you can take your computer and plug it directly into your router. You can enter the IP address of the local area network and access it that way. That's the top right-hand photo. The bottom left-hand photo is accessing the router directly. And on the bottom right-hand corner, that's a direct connection over Wi-Fi. You have to be very close to that device. In this case, it's probably 18 to 24 inches is what you're looking at in terms of connectivity. Question for the end. Perfect. Thank you. We'll definitely address that. Moving on here. Okay, so these are the displays that you're going to see. There's various forms of the display depending on what you've connected. Basically, everything that you've connected shows in the overview screen, which I have 4 different examples up here. So these blocks represent either power coming in, power coming out, where it's coming from, and how much of it. So you can see on the top left-hand corner, for example, you would have an inverter charger in the middle, or multi-plus or quattro, an AC input, the measurement of power, an AC output, the measurement of power. You have battery information in the bottom left-hand corner, so that gives you state of charge and current, and the PV charger's production all by itself. That's been a big request from us to see the solar by itself. In between these blocks, you have the blue lines, and when these are animated, those bubbles are flowing in the direction of the energy. So you can see how much and which direction it's going and where. And it's a great way to see an overall system status, power flow, and how much in one place, which is super useful. Take a look at the Q&A. Can the app access settings or strictly for monitoring? Yes, you can change the settings in your inverter charger. It's called Remote VE Configure, and the VE.Direct devices as well. So it's quite a powerful tool. If you want to change that, you can, but be aware that you can change that. So making sure that the right people have access to this is very important. And also being aware of who has your cell phone in their hands. I've seen this a few times with sons or daughters or grandchildren. They're running around with your iPhone in their hands. So you'll want to be a little bit careful about what they're doing with that. Move on here. So I've referenced the VRM portal a couple of times. An additional connectivity feature with this GX device is our Victron remote monitoring portal. A lot of companies, if not all of the other companies that I've seen, charge for this type of remote monitoring. So it's an initial setup fee. It's a monthly fee. It's an annual fee. We do not charge for this. There are no plans to charge for it. So once you buy this equipment, connect it up, get yourself an internet connection, you have some very serious monitoring power here. The granularity is extensive. You can drill down to the minute, see what your solar charger's been doing, your inverter charger. It can send you alarms over email, not text message. But most people, at least from what I've seen, have their email attached to their cell phone. So you'll get a notification that something's happening based upon the alarm that you've set. Diagnostics is a big one. I use this fairly often when somebody says, okay, well, I have something strange going on in my system. From an installer's point of view, that is super helpful. So instead of driving 6 or 8 hours in your van, you can say, okay, well, here, let me take a look at your VRM account, and perhaps I can help you solve this from afar. And also the setting changes that I mentioned earlier, you could do that as well. You can try the demo out on our website. It's victronenergy.com. Right at the top, there's a login button. You'll click on VRM, and you can sign into some demo accounts to have a look around if you'd like. Oh, yes, the VictronConnect app. So more connectivity stuff here. This is mostly for Bluetooth products. For anybody that's been following our products, you'll see smart versions. So a smart solar charge controller, a smart shunt, a smart XYZ. And when it has smart in the name, that means that it has a Bluetooth chip built into it. And with that Bluetooth chip, you can use our free of charge VictronConnect app to access these products, not only for settings, but also for monitoring. There are many people that say, okay, well, it's great that there is a physical display option, but I have my phone in my pocket or I have a tablet around, so I would prefer to use that, or there are physical options to do it as well. But this has become a highly popular, super user-friendly display and also ability to change settings. So I'm not sure how many of you out there are installers, but there's no special cable needed to configure something like a solar charger from us or any other smart products that we might sell. So you're quite literally talking about installing it, putting it on the wall, downloading the app, configuring it, showing the customer how to use it, and well, off you go. So this app either connects via Bluetooth with wired cables if you want. Some people say, okay, well, the Bluetooth is great, but I still want to use the cable. You can do that. You can also firmware update in here. That's super easy to do. It already holds the firmware in the program. So no cell phone connectivity required. You don't have to worry about dropping Wi-Fi or your cell phone service if you're in a place where you don't have access to that. It's already in the program. Some Q&As here. Maybe I can address a couple of these. Looks like a question coming in from Anonymous. Do you actually need to open email to be notified of an alert, or does the app have a push notification? It will send you an email and you need to click the link to see what's going on. So it will tell you that something's going on, but you have to click on it to get the granular data that you're after, actually what's happening, to answer your question. Is remote data access password protected? Yes, it is. You have to put in an email and a password, but thinking about that with the modern technology, at least for me, I usually have my phone. I have an iPhone, Android probably does the same thing. Save the credentials when I'm logging into something, so I don't have to type it in every time. But yes, it is password protected. And I guess if you were worried about the grandkids, I have a son too, so I completely understand getting in there. I would not auto save that information. So you have to automatically type it in, or when you know they're going to be around, disable that feature. So yes, it is password protected and you can manipulate it to either auto log in or manually type that information every time. That's a great question. Okay, so one more thing on the screen before I go on to the next is the demo product library. If you download VictronConnect, again, free of charge, it's available on Apple and Android, both of the stores. There is a demo product library. I use this all the time. Customers will ask me, what are the extremes for the charging voltage, or can I change this or that, and what's the max or what's the min? You can download any product that is compatible with the VictronConnect over Bluetooth or wired connection for that matter, and play with it as if it were connected. So you can say, all right, well, I'm not really sure if I can set the charge voltage where I want it. You can download that product and manipulate it as if you were connected to it. That is super helpful. You can save and load settings, and there's also some help boxes. This program has come a long way. It's super helpful. You can click on things. It will tell you what that means, what it's doing. So from a usability standpoint for installers and end users, it's pretty fantastic. Let's see here. Yes. Well, I mentioned Android and iPhone, but a step forward here, for anybody that's been around the Victron world for a while, there was a limitation in terms of configuring our inverter chargers. That was only on PC for a very, very long time. Now, VictronConnect can connect and configure with Mac or Windows. We've added the ability to use Mac in terms of communicating with these devices. And that's huge for us. For the longest time, it was only PC. Let's see another Q&A here. Let me stop. Do any of the displays time out requiring login? The VRM portal does not do that. It will stay up definitively. The VictronConnect app, yes, if that goes to sleep, your phone goes to sleep, and you wake it back up, it will have to reconnect with the device. I hope that answers your question. Okay, right, so the takeaway here is Mac and Windows compatible. You want to be a little bit careful here. Windows does have a limitation in terms of Bluetooth capability, and that's something that we're working on, but be aware, Windows products such as a PC, I'm on a PC right now, does not communicate via VictronConnect wirelessly to Bluetooth devices like the Smart Shunt and the Smart Solar, but that's notated. Okay, so I put this slide in here to illustrate the difference. So you have two things going on in the Victron world in terms of connectivity and communication. On the left-hand side, you have Bluetooth. So think about the Bluetooth speaker that you might have out in the workshop or out by the pool or the barbecue. That's the type of range that you can be expecting. And that's the kind of physical location that you could be expecting. That's local to the units within Bluetooth LE range. The range on these is pretty good. Line of sight depends on the product. They're more or less the same Bluetooth chip, but you're talking about, I've done it up to 30 feet myself. So you also want to be aware of burying one of these devices in an installation. And I know that you have to in most cases. So let's think about an off-grid cabin or an RV or a boat, something like that. If you put this in a metal box, that's going to severely limit the Bluetooth range. Or if you put it in a wooden box or below the floor, you just need to be aware that this is Bluetooth LE. So if you're putting things in between the device and your cell phone, that's going to hamper the ability of the device to communicate. That's something that I see a lot. And I know you can't help it, but you want to put that in the most external place possible. Otherwise, the range will be limited. So that's the local side of things. Bluetooth communication with the smart products within range of the installation. Over on the right-hand side, you're talking about remote access. So as long as your GX device is connected to the internet, then you have the ability, both on your desktop and also on your cell phone with the VRM app, which again is free of charge, to see your installation and also receive alarms from a faraway place. I travel on business a ton, so I'm always on a plane or in an airport, planes, trains, automobiles, you name it. So it is very, very useful for me to be able to pull up my VRM app, see what's going on, receive alarms there for my system. And I can't overstress the importance of this being a free of charge service. I know that companies are charging hundreds of dollars for this service. So what does it look like? What does it actually look like? Over on the left-hand side, that is one of our small Blue Power chargers. You might be using that to charge a starter battery on the generator, something of that nature. That is wireless with a smart product. And that is a smart solar MPPT, a smart shunt. If you see smart in the name, has the Bluetooth chip. In the middle, there are another line of MPPTs that we sell alongside each other. There's a blue solar and a smart solar. And as I've mentioned, the smart solar has the chip inside. There is a line of blue solar charge controllers. Some people say, well, that Bluetooth stuff is great, but I don't need it. I'm just going to buy the blue solar. And then later they say, okay, well, geez, I really wish that I bought the smart solar because I do want this cell phone interaction. Well, there is an option for that. We sell a VE.Direct Bluetooth smart dongle. If you want to add that capability to it, you can do that and have the access. So it is an optional item if you want to add it later. Over on the right-hand side, I keep talking about configuration of these products via Bluetooth. With the inverter chargers, we do not have a model that has it built in yet. So it's very much like that middle picture. You have to buy an external VE.Bus smart dongle if you want Bluetooth capability via the Victron app. With that, you cannot configure the product in terms of charging voltages, inverter shutdown voltages. All you can do with that particular line of products, VE.Bus and the VE.Bus smart dongle, is turn it on, off, or charger only, just like the front switch, and limit the AC input current limit. If you connect to that with an MK3, yes, you can change it with VictronConnect, but that's a common misconception. For us, there's two camps with this. How much accessibility do you give to a cell phone? Going back to the grandkids thing here, do you want somebody to easily be able to increase the charging voltage on your lithium batteries? Probably not. That could become a very dangerous thing quickly. So yes, it's possible. At this moment, we've decided that it's probably not the wisest decision to be able to do that. I've got a Q&A here. Any of your products or vintage equipment that will be impacted with loss of 3G networks? No, I don't see that becoming an issue. And there's a reason why. Some of the older products may go away with 3G at the same time, but there are additional products which are coming, and I know I'm thinking about that out loud. Well, you're probably thinking, okay, well, now I need to buy another product that is not backwards compatible with 3G. But any of the things running on 3G now or most I should say, are compatible with 4G as well. So I don't foresee 4G going away anytime soon. And by the time that does, well, then you will certainly want the newer hardware because it will be much more feature rich. That's a great question. Let's see. Okay. This is a common question in terms of connecting, physical connections in between the devices. So again, not everybody is a huge fan of this Bluetooth thing. They say, well, you know, I've been using cables for decades and I'm going to continue to use cables. Which ones do I need? In the top left-hand corner, that is a VE.Bus product, so multi-plus, quattro, large inverters. You need our MK Mike Kilo 3 to USB converter for those products. You cannot buy that anywhere else. You'll have to buy that from us. One end is USB, it goes into your computer. The other end is a female Cat5 connection. And from that, you have a Cat cable that goes up into the inverter or inverter charger. In the top right-hand corner, you have a VE.Direct, which is what we talked about early on, to a USB interface. And that's to configure VE.Direct products that do or do not have Bluetooth built in, but you still want to use the cable. Bottom left is showing you the VictronConnect, as opposed to just using VE.Configure. I mentioned that earlier. VE.Configure was only PC driven. Now you can use VictronConnect on the Windows or the Mac. So that's a huge step forward for us. On the bottom right-hand corner, I put this in here because it's interesting. If you have an Android and you have a USB on the go cable, you can connect to these products directly by putting your VE.Direct to USB cable in between the two with the USB on the go cable and configure it right from your phone, which is super handy to be able to do. See a Q&A. Wouldn't closed loop BMS comms preclude someone changing charge voltages? Which batteries are you compatible with? Yes, closed loop BMSs. We are not in control of that whatsoever. It's coming out of the battery, as you probably know, asking the questions. Which batteries are we compatible with? That's a great question. On our website, victronenergy.com, in the top right-hand corner, there's a magnifying glass. If you click on the magnifying glass and type in battery compatibility, you'll see a full list of batteries that we are compatible with at this very moment. And while we're here, anything that's not on that list, you can consider us not compatible with, and you won't see a lot of support on that. And there's a couple of things that go along with that, and there's a reason for that. Just 1 second, sorry.
Yeah, I work here.
I know, but I'm in a meeting. Yeah, sorry about that. I just had somebody coming in there on the side. Okay, moving on here. Smart networking. Okay, so back to the wireless side of things. Now that we've covered all of the physical connections, there is capability for the products to communicate with one another. Some of these products I've listed here on the bullet points. There is the smart battery sense, the battery monitors. So to be more specific on the battery monitors, that is the BMB712, which has an integrated Bluetooth chip, and the BMB700 and 702 with the VE.Direct Bluetooth dongle that I covered a couple of slides ago. The MPVTs, that's the smart solar charge controllers or the blue solar charge controllers with the VE.Direct Bluetooth dongle. And the blue smart chargers are now part of this. You can parallel them, but only the IP22 model. So those are the higher current models. And I put a note here because it's super important, and I see some confusion around this. For the non-smart models, so the blue solar, for instance, you will need the VE.Direct Bluetooth dongle for this capability. Yes, shared system values. So when you put in a charging source, you have two different voltages, one on the terminal and then one on the terminal of the charging device. And what we've done is given you the ability to attach a smart battery sense, we call it. So on the side of the battery here, you have a small blue box that's called a smart battery sense, and that's measuring terminal voltage and battery temperature on the battery and giving you that information over the smart network via Bluetooth to tell the charger what the actual voltage and temperature of the battery is. I have another slide on this coming up. Right. So why is that important? There are, of course, two different values and two different temperatures in the system that you just saw. One would be terminal voltage on the battery, and one would be terminal voltage on the MPPT itself. There's going to be a voltage drop. Even in a perfectly designed system, you're going to have two different values there. And it is far more efficient and properly charge the battery if it knows, the MPPT knows what those values are. A couple of questions here. Is it possible to network interface with other tech like Ray Marine, i.e. Enemy 2000? Yes, it is. Janice, thank you. If you go to our website, again, top right-hand corner, VictronEnergy.com, magnifying glass, and type in glass bridge integration, we do have some very easy integration options via a GX device. So that's Cerbo GX, a color control GX, Venus GX. If you connect all of the products to the GX device and use our NMEA 2000 to VE.Can, so that's a micro C mail connection on there, the GX will act as a funnel and take that information and pour it onto the backbone. And you can see that either with our MFD app. We've made one. It just auto-populates on the MFD, the compatible MFD. Make sure you read the list. And also, you have the option to send that information out and manipulate it. So if you want to customize the display, you can do it that way as well. Michael, thanks for the question. Does the VE.Direct network negate the use for physical connections to the Cerbo GX? Excellent question. I think to word that question another way would be, do I need communication cables between the Cerbo GX because it has Bluetooth and the other devices that have Bluetooth, like the smart solar charge controller or the smart shunt? Yes, you still need a physical connection there. That was something that we went back and forth on internally as well. And given our experience with the actual installations, Bluetooth is not reliable enough when the charge controller is buried in the locker over here and the inverter is in the chain locker over there, and the Cerbo GX is up on the bridge. There would be connectivity issues. Sometimes that wouldn't be such an issue. Others, it would cause problems in the system. So yes, you have to hardwire them to the GX device. Bluetooth communication is not possible. I hope that helps. Right, okay, so all you're doing here with the Bluetooth communication and the smart battery sense is making sure that the terminal voltage on the battery and the actual battery temperature is getting to the charge source to compensate for cable losses and also properly temperature compensate when the battery gets warm or cold. Right, okay, so setting this up is pretty easy to do. Falls in the communication category, so I put a slide in here. You open the VictronConnect app, open the product that you want to start with, and you always want to start with the voltage and temperature measurement device here. So that's the smart battery sense or the BMV battery monitor. Open that up. You can name this network, Joe's Camper maybe, and then you simply open the solar charge controller as the second device and push join network, and you'll get a small icon that shows that they're networked together, and that way you know that it's working properly. It's very easy to set that up. We have the instructions in the manual. Visuals, here we go. So I'll start with the right-hand side here, because there's some extra stuff going on. You saw the smart battery sense attached to the battery itself. That's the little blue cube. But above that, you have a blue solar charge controller. And with that, you don't have Bluetooth. So what we've done here is added the Bluetooth capability with the VE.Direct Bluetooth smart dongle. So then it has Bluetooth and it can talk to the smart battery sense. But not only that, is both of those products can talk to VictronConnect. So you can see them individually and also get that functionality of terminal voltage and temperature on the charge controller. So that's a nice little system there. Over on the left-hand side, I have shown that you can use the battery monitor, whether it be the BMG 712 with the chip in it, the Bluetooth chip, or you can add a dongle to the 700 or 702 and get the same with the additional temperature sensor. That does not come in a box. It's an optional accessory. Not everybody uses the temperature sensor for the BMD, and we would be charging for that if we put it in there as a standard accessory. So you have to buy that separately. But it does essentially the same thing. But in this setup on the left, you're also getting a state of charge meter. So you're doing two things at once. One, you're getting a fuel gauge for your battery bank, but you're also getting that terminal voltage and battery temperature communicated to your smart solar charge controller over Bluetooth. Yes, so this might be interesting for some of you. You can, this goes back to your question previously in terms of devices talking to each other. Although they can't talk to the Cerbo GX via Bluetooth, some of these products can talk to each other. On the left-hand side, I've had this drawing out to tell you that multiple devices can communicate with the smart battery sense. So if you have multiple charge controllers with Bluetooth in your system, one source, such as the smart battery sense, can communicate that information to multiple charge controllers over the Bluetooth network. Now, relatively recent development is you can parallel these solar charge controllers over Bluetooth. So that's nice, no communication cables in between them. And what does that mean? What does it actually mean in practice? Well, generally, one of these solar charge controllers may be in absorption and one may be in flow. Well, when you parallel them over Bluetooth, then you're getting a true both absorption and flow all at the same time. So that saves questions and also optimizes the performance of the solar chargers to keep them both in the same state at the same time. On the right-hand side, I put this in here. Some of the small Blue Power chargers will be able to communicate in this network. I'm not sure if that's interesting for you or not, but it was part of the connectivity conversation. So I put this in here for you. Yes, more physical connections. I put this one in here because I get the question a fair amount. Well, what does it look like when I have some multipluses, quattros, large inverters in parallel or split phase or three phase? That is simply daisy chaining with the Cat5 cables that I've been talking about. And whether you get them from us or make them yourself, straight through RJ45 Cat5 cables. I know I've repeated this several times, but I still see trouble with this in the field, particularly with homemade cables and third-party cables. I know a lot of installers work with multiple brands, and the inclination there is to just grab a cable out of the bag and put it into the installation. Well, that's not always going to work. So just be careful of what you're doing. But as far as communication, it's simply daisy chaining them together in the VE.Bus system with no terminators necessary. So that's pretty much what it looks like there. Yes, VE.Direct connections. Fair amount of questions about this, and that's why I took my stylus and drew it up here. VE.Direct. So if anybody's attaching things to a Cerbo GX or a color control GX with a cable, can't do this with Bluetooth. You'll see with the color control, you have 5 VE.Direct supported. You'll see on the Cerbo GX, you have up to 15 VE.Direct connections supported. But if you physically look at the device, you're going to run out of ports pretty quick. So this is the back of the color control. In the top left-hand corner, you can see I have 2 VE.Direct devices. Well, you told me there's 5 for capability, but I only have 2 connections. How do I connect the rest? Well, with that, you can purchase a USB hub, and I would always recommend buying a powered USB hub, because what you're trying to do here is expand your communication network. So when you're adding more into the system, it's always a good idea to give it the best possible chance by purchasing a powered USB hub. Yes, you can buy some that aren't. Is it going to be okay for relatively short distances? Probably, but what you're trying to do here, again, is expand the system, and the best possible way to do that is to get yourself a powered USB hub. And that's where you get the rest of your connections. So USB hub, and then from the USB hub, again, we saw it earlier, was the USB to VE.Direct cable. Those only come in one length. So they're 63 inches long. So you have to get within 63 inches of the products that you're trying to connect to with the USB hub. Let's see Q&A here. Is your DC coupled system able to limit charging from external AC source when combined sources, IPV, exceed the battery max charge current allowance? Yes, it is. Or yes, it can, I guess, to answer the question, as long as those sources are Victron. So if you have a inverter charger from Victron and an MPPT from Victron, you can set a system-wide charge current to not exceed the value that you want. That's possible to do. I think I got a slide on that coming up. Good question. One other note here, I don't think I put it anywhere else, but I did put it here. When you're using the VE.Direct cables for physical connections, the maximum length on those is 10 meters. So that's a little bit north of 30 feet. You want to be really careful there because you cannot extend those cables. You can get beyond that with a powered USB hub, but plan if you're doing that. Make sure you're doing it with the USB hub that has power and not trying to extend the VE.Direct cables beyond 10 meters. That's the absolute max there. Ah, yes, the VE.Can connections. They look almost identical to the VE.Bus connections, but you need the terminators. This on the left here is the GX device. With this, definitely terminators. And something to note here, as long as it's VE.Can, you can mix different products. So here you can see I have two solar charge controllers on the left, then I have a battery charger, and then I have a battery monitor. That's our link shunt there. Those are multiple different devices, but it's okay to put those on VE.Can. I get that question quite a lot. I put that in here. Yes, your question. So setting a system-wide maximum charge current. Yes, if it looks like this, you can do that because they're talking to each other, the inverter charger and the charge controller via the GX device. You may want to add a BMV there. I drew that in the bottom, or there could be a BMS in there for the closed loop question. That can be set for those as well. What else does it do? It prioritizes solar charging over grid charging, which generally is a goal when you have a system like this, because the energy from the sun is free after you buy the hardware, of course. The other thing you can do is set a system-wide voltage measurement point. So in this case, the most accurate place for measuring voltage would be the BMV, which I've drawn in here in the black marker. And that system voltage can be used by all of the charging sources to say, okay, well, I know the terminal voltage, so let's tell everybody else in the system that we're using that terminal voltage on the battery instead of the terminal voltage on the charge source. So that makes up for voltage loss in your DC system. I think that was my last slide. Are there any questions? I think we had one that could wait for later. Question can be saved for the end. Are there firmware updates planned for the inverter charger lineup to allow greater flexibility on the fixed absorption time limit for the Orion TR as well? Okay, I think I know where the question is coming from for the inverter charger first. The minimum absorption time for our inverter chargers is 1 hour. Some battery manufacturers say, well, I want you to skip that altogether, or I only want 5 minutes of that. Yes, it's on our radar. Do I have a time frame for that? No. We're very much aware of the multiple lithium battery manufacturers in the market, and also that not everybody is going to use a Victron battery, right? So we are trying to make these things as flexible as possible for third-party batteries without catering our product entirely towards another battery manufacturer, if that makes sense. So yes, I suspect that will come for both products that you've listed there, Andre. Hope that answers your question. Any others? I see some chats here. Ah, yeah, you're welcome, Eric. Also, Andre, you're welcome. I went through those slides pretty quick. I was worried about running over and not having enough time at the end here. Maybe there's another Q&A. Ah, yes. Does Victron offer a grid-tied, net metered 122 40-volt inverter charger that is battery capable at what DC voltage, Carrie? And how big? What you looking for? Tell me more. Maybe we can unmute Carrie. You're welcome, Oswaldo.
All right, Carrie, you should be able to unmute now, like.
Yeah. Ah, okay. 48, 10, and 12K. No, we do not currently offer one that big. We also don't offer any smaller ones in 48 volt, but we will. What that's going to look like, at least from what I've seen in the pipeline, and I can't tell you a time frame on it because it's not close enough to tell you that, is a 48 5K 120 volt. So that'll be multiple units to get to the power that you want. One hot leg in each unit, a shared neutral, and a ground with UL 1741. So I think that's the best we can do to get to your requirement. With that, you can add more than one unit on each leg if you want. So you could do line 1, 1 unit, line 2, 1 unit. You could do line 1, 2 units, line 2, 2 units. So you can go 2, 4, 6, 8, up to 6 units on each leg. That would be our solution in the relatively short future. I don't know if that answers your question. You're welcome. You're welcome. Any others? General or otherwise? I guess we might have a few minutes break here before the open networking session, huh?
Yeah, should be just enough time, I think, to get some refreshments and everything.
Okay, super.
Yeah, thanks for that. That was awesome, Justin. I can tell you updated it to really like hone in on the questions people ask.
I do.
Yeah.
When I do these things, because I'm in it every day, I really try to focus on what is in my mind as the question that reoccurs. Not from the same person, of course, but it comes in over and over again. So that's where I'm coming from when I say these things.
Yeah.
My experience.
Super informative.
Great. Thanks, Robert. Thanks for joining. I'll be in the open networking if anybody wants to ask me any specific questions of the installation or have a general conversation about any of this. Happy to do that.